So here's the thing about Diane and Princess Carolyn in Bojack Horseman. They seem to be two completely different people, but there's actually a lot of similarities in their personalities and senses of self-worth that aid in them understanding and empathizing with one another, and then providing support, lifting each other up and helping them achieve each other's goals. It truly is a beautiful depiction of friendships that sort of work their way into your life unexpectedly, but end up becoming some of the most important bonds you will ever forge, and help you reach new areas of development you never even thought you could get to. See, Princess Carolyn and Diane are almost inverses of one another in how they present themselves. Princess Carolyn is a fiercely career-driven woman, and often uses that success that she attains professionally to prop up her own self-worth and convince herself that she has value. She describes this herself when she directly tells Diane that her life is a mess right now, and she compulsively takes care of other people when she doesn't know how to take care of herself, because that seemingly selfless act makes her feel useful, just as it did when she was a kid, where even though her mother didn't pay much attention to her individually due to her alcoholism and the fact that she had a bunch of kids in that tiny house at the same time, she still stepped in and resolved to do her mother's job for her whenever she was too drunk, as we see in the Amelia Earhart story. And she really struggles to leave her mother behind and stop taking care of her for this very reason. Ultimately, when she flies off into the sun, she's finally moving beyond this home that has her trapped, but not necessarily this pattern of behavior. And it's replaced by her career, since she moves to a new city with no connections to rely on. So she's determined to make this career work by any means necessary. And thus, PC doesn't always make the most moral choice or do positive things for the perhaps right reasons. We see throughout the series that she often uses people to keep that professional success, like with her assistant Laura. I mean, I get it. As soon as Laura is gone, her assistant is an actual disaster until Judah comes into the picture, but still Laura really respected and looked up to her, and PC used that to selfishly keep her close, assuming that would be the best for herself and make her own office more efficient, even if it's not what Laura wanted. And that isn't the only time she does this either. She even happens to fight directly with Diane in Brat Brat Pew Pew over doing something that Diane sees as morally reprehensible, even if she herself is very easily able to justify it.
You don't think this is incredibly disrespectful to the women who actually get abortions?
Not if we do it tasteful.
Diane, this is what the client wants. Stop making it about you.
I'm not making it about me.
I am so tired of you creating problems.
I'm not.
I have given everything to get where I am, and I am not about to throw all that away. She wants an abortion? I'm getting her an abortion.
You know this is bullshit.
It's all bullshit, Diane. That's the gig.
And doesn't really think twice about moving forward with that decision to fake an abortion on live television, even if it offends Diane, who is really going through the process of aborting a child. Whereas Diane can't be on board with any of this until she actually sees that it is doing good things for those going through the same experience, and that they were very textured and careful about how they presented it. Princess Carolyn is merely concerned about how it affects her client and her business, so if her client wants that fake abortion on live television, she is going to give it to her, despite the fact that Diane has protests to it. Or, during the strike of the assistants, she uses underhanded methods to turn them against one another. The great thing is that she's able to break her own cycle here, empathize with their position, and keep their best interest in mind, but there is a definite pattern throughout the series of PC using those around her to advance her professional position rather selfishly. Part of her development is her journey to find value outside of professional entanglements, which she does through Ruthie, her adopted daughter. A beautiful conclusion to this issue, and she builds a family with her and Judah. But for a lot of her career, she doesn't really care about the social issues that she's impacting or the messages that she's sending. She simply wants to be a success. Diane, however, suffers from almost the exact opposite dilemma for much of the series. Her high expectations for herself and those around her and her strong moral stances often lead her to butt heads with those that she works with, even sacrificing her own position or success in the effort to do the right thing, which, to be honest, isn't always a flaw. Like with Girl Cruise and White Whale, I sure as hell wouldn't continue working there knowing what I know about their business practices and how outright evil the head of the company is, you know, just murdering employees, no matter how fun the job was. I mean, I could get murdered. But we see this present a problem for her in Hank After Dark, where her going after Hank Hippopopoulos could potentially affect Mr. Peanut Butter and her career, but she's more determined to do the right thing and go after this man who is actively hurting women because nobody else is. Again, it's not necessarily a flaw because somebody should be calling this asshole out, but it does cause some pretty severe personal issues for her, her career trajectory, and her marriage. Or when she's working at Girl Cruise and struggles to get clicks on her articles articles and succeed as a writer there because she wants to be able to make a supreme difference in the world and write about injustices that deserve more attention, but all people click on is rather vapid posts about celebrity penis outlines and what have you. And like I just mentioned, she also even butts heads with her bosses directly a number of times throughout the series, like with Princess Carolyn and the whole Sextina Aquafina abortion thing, where she genuinely wants to make a difference with the platform that she currently has, speaking to a bunch of people about this issue, but feels that Princess Carolyn and Sextina are trivializing it, making jokes out of it, and giving the pro-life movement more fuel to add to their fire, which is fair, but I do appreciate that Diane definitely does come around at the end of this episode and sees the value in it, making people feel less alone, less scared, more comfortable with the idea. Honestly, we see this dynamic play out pretty explicitly again in season 5, where in Bojack the Feminist, when Princess Carolyn wants to hire Vance Wagner, Diane is very upset about the decision, understandably, considering all of the horrible things that man has done, but Princess Carolyn thinks it'll boost ratings, so she hires him onto the show anyway, because money. But then, when he disses the show and Bojack, she actually wants to fire back at him and tries to use Diane to do so, declaring her as cynical, switching to the other side just because it's a monetary thing, and now he's negatively affecting the show. It's honestly hilarious how it plays out over and over again, and Diane is so relatable here. But the biggest example is likely her experience with Ivy Tran, Food Court Detective. Diane's need to change the world and help those struggling like she did as a child prevents her from pursuing something that she actually genuinely enjoyed and would likely be a huge success. Even though Diane struggles to write her book of essays every time she sits down to write it, she still feels that she needs to do it, though it's costing her happiness and affecting her opinion of herself in the process, sinking her into this deep depression. However, Ivy Tran just spills out of her, showing how easy it can be when you actually enjoy what you're doing, and is known to be a success before it even comes out. Princess Carolyn is ready to market a whole franchise from the first draft of Ivy Tran. It's clearly quality, but despite that, Diane puts up obstacles and refuses to actually follow through until she's able to get the encouragement and support she needs from others. When Princess Carolyn and Diane fought in the abortion episode, Princess Carolyn did have a point that Diane does create some problems for herself. What Diane had to learn was to choose happiness, take chances on things that she's always been averse to due to her strong principles, like when she distances herself from Guy at first for fear that he'll be the only good thing in her life, even though he makes her incredibly happy. She states to Mr. Peanut Butter that with Guy, she's finally learning how to be part of an us, which she never had felt before in her previous relationships, always trying to keep a small distance between them and not let them too close for fear of how they might hurt her. But one thing that they actually have in common is a fierce desire to use their own damage, even if Diane states this more explicitly than Princess Carolyn does. PC believes that the work ethic she earned from her mother's neglect is uniquely beneficial and is the main way she can interact with the world around her positively. Her success gives her value and makes use of that childhood where she didn't get a lot of time to actually be a child, since her mother forced her to grow up rather fast through her lack of care. When she loses her agency at the end of season 3, she feels purposeless, even though she has a man who loves her, trying to help Diane as much as she can to give herself some sense of value and to prop herself up in her own mind, like I said earlier, and then immediately starting up a management company to fill that hole inside of her despite Ralph's protests. She simply can't sit still and be someone's arm piece as they vacation around the world. I think there is definitely a component of this that is just what PC enjoys doing, evidenced by her happy ending. She just loves to work, but I also still believe that oftentimes she chooses professional accomplishments because it's the easiest way for her to make sense of this harsh childhood she endured, and it's the quickest way she knows to get people to respect, like her, and to make herself feel that she has value. But it sort of gets in the way of that life that she's actually always wanted sometimes, complete with a family, where she finds she spent so much time working her way up the corporate ladder and floundering around with Bojack. Not that she regrets it. She outwardly states she does not regret her time with Bojack. She probably just wishes that he wanted to start a family or that they were more clear about their priorities up front. But she states that she doesn't have a lot of time left to secure what she's always wanted, even before she fully ends her relationship with Bojack. And Diane went through so much pain, abuse, and neglect in her own home as a child, she develops this feeling as if she needs to make use of it somehow. I spoke about this at length in my video about good damage exclusively, but this is a process called meaning making in trauma, and it's an extremely common reaction to traumatic experiences or negative events. When our sense of reality is distorted so heavily, where we believe that the world is built on justice, karma, and fairness, and then we receive a senseless trauma that cuts through all of those assumptions, we need to restructure them to make sense of it, saying that there still is karma and justice, and I will be rewarded and stronger for suffering through this abuse, and whoever abused me will automatically be punished by the universe, when that's not exactly how things work. When she struggles to actually make concrete use of that damage inside her the way she always believed she had to, this entire worldview that she built up to protect herself is irreparably shattered, and she ends up sinking extremely deep into depression. I don't think it's quite as bad as when she left Cordovia, but it's still a far cry from the good place that she was in before starting to work on this book of essays. Although Cordovia is another example of this endeavor and Diane's cyclical behavior. Wanting to make a huge difference and write something completely world-changing, help children everywhere in the most war-torn countries feel less alone, but the reality was extremely different from what she always expected, and that shook everything she previously thought was commonplace. But they're both prone to depressive episodes when this vision doesn't work out, as we see with Diane when she returns from Cordovia, and also with Princess Carolyn after she loses important pieces of her business, her top client, Judah, as well as those pieces of her life that were going well, Ralph, and the potential for a family. After Ruthie, she really struggles to bounce back, sinking into alcohol to attempt to distract from her feeling as if she doesn't have value anymore, that she has lost everything that makes her worthy, now that her company is on its way down, and she has no chance for a family in the future in her own mind, because, again, she was set on having them herself, doing the same thing that her mother did, re-experiencing her childhood, popping out a bunch of kids by the dozen, as she states it, and raising them all with care and love to kind of retroactively fix that childhood that was so ruined by her own mother's lack of support. It takes a lot of help and support from others for both of them to climb out of these respective holes. But the great thing is, they're able to uniquely understand one another and lift each other up when they're in their worst spots. Like when Diane is struggling with PTSD and depression after her time in Cordovia. Yes, I do believe PC was mostly helping Diane to help herself feel better about her own messy personal life. But there is something to be said about her choice to help specifically Diane, of all people. She needs to lift someone up to lift herself up, but why work most with this person you don't have a particularly strong connection to? It is only season 2, after all. These two characters don't really have that much of a bond at this point. In fact, have they even talked before this scene directly? I mean, they've been around one another for work, maybe exchanged 1 or 2 words, and I know Diane wrote kindly about PC in Bojack's book, but have they ever had like an actual conversation? I fully believe that there's a part of her that understands exactly what Diane is going through right now, that wants to curl up in this ball and waste away her days like Diane is doing due to her relationship with Rutabaga going down the drain and her valued position at her company potentially threatened, and that's why helping Diane specifically would help her feel immensely better about her own position, because she can fundamentally understand what Diane is currently going through. And Princess Carolyn is able to habitually understand what Diane means when she states that she has to write this book of essays and make use of this damage. Otherwise, that trauma that she went through has no meaning in the grand scheme of things. What didn't kill her did not make her stronger. It's not unreasonable to assume that she went through the same thought process at one point, and perhaps might not have even realized it until Diane said it out loud. Over the years, Princess Carolyn has been using her damage, her treatment as a child, as her main driving force for success, and subconsciously has been reassuring herself that her childhood and everything her mom and siblings put her through was worth it to make her this person that she is today, maybe because she was meant to have a family of her own and she would raise them perfectly, and because of this mistreatment she would have her own amazing family. I truly think that Diane helped her learn something about herself here, just as much as Princess Carolyn helped Diane realize that she could still aid in making those children feel less alone, those children that are like her, and write something that she genuinely has fun making. She doesn't have to write that book of essays for everything to make sense. She doesn't have to make anything if she doesn't want to. Sometimes things just happen to us, and that's something both of these characters needed to learn, and did learn through their relationship with one another. Overall, this friendship speaks to how we can have more in common with one another than we might think. Yes, Princess Carolyn and Diane were raised in vastly different households and approach conflict throughout the series in extremely different ways, but they still have a great deal that they can relate to in one another, and can still use that to lift each other up into a better place, even if they're not the closest of friends. I do believe this is a beautiful connection, and they would not have made it to the amazing places that they end the series in without each other's help. But if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/PosiTVty. There you can get extra content in the form of unedited essays and all of these videos before they come out on here, but also the support on YouTube means a lot. Please discuss further in the comments below, subscribe, like, do all those wonderful things, because we really do appreciate each and every bit of it. And let us know what you would like to see next. Spread some love today, all right?